You have
Mhm.
to break it down into its most smallest steps. We teachers call that like a task analysis of, you know,
Mhm.
what do my kids need to know first? And then what are those small chunks to get them to my final learning objective? And so that's kind of what we did with boot camp. We just started with what are the absolute basics that people need to know, because our target audience was new folks coming in that either are fully certified, but it's their first year teaching, or are still in school to become fully certified. And so we just looked at, boy, if you were a brand new teacher, what are the things that you needed to know? And then we created sessions that could not only provide information in that moment, but that we could record and folks could refer back to.
Yeah. Mhm.
Because if you're listening to 12 different presenters over the course of 2 days, there's no way you can remember everything.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Brighter Together podcast. My name is Janet Courtney, and my special guest today is Lori Rush. Lori is the Director of Student Support Services at East Point Community Schools in East Point, Michigan. Lori, I almost messed up your title, but I fixed it.
You did. You got it right.
So, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I
So,
appreciate it.
yeah, I'm glad you're here. So, Lori is from Michigan, and I was in Michigan for 19 years, not too far away. We discovered before the podcast started. So, tell me what's going on at East Point Community Schools and your job there.
Sure. Well, we have a lot of exciting things that go on in East Point schools. Yesterday was actually the first day back for students. They had a half day. And so today was their first full day. And it's like I'm sure is the case in most school districts, it's super busy at the beginning of the school year. And so there's a lot of things going on, but I deal primarily with special education. That's my primary responsibility here in East Point, and I've been doing this for, can we just say more than 30 years? I don't have to give an exact
No,
number.
you do not have to give an exact number. And for
Perfect.
those that are listening right now, because it's about 6 to 8 weeks before these are published, today is August 28th, 2025. So if they're looking at their watch going, wait a minute, it's October. Why is she saying first day of school? That's why. So
That is
there's a
why,
there you
yes,
go.
it's August. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I one of the things that I've worked really hard on here in East Point, when I started here as a director, which was like 11-ish years ago, it was my
Wow.
first administrative job in special education. And so I came into a district that didn't have a lot of policies and procedures in place. And so a lot of those had to be created. And I drew on the experience of my dear friend and mentor. Her name is Donna Tinberg, and she was my boss when I worked in a different school district. And she taught me everything I know.
Oh,
And
nice.
so I drew on that experience and created a lot of the policies and procedures that we use now. One of the things that I discovered was that these days, we have an awful lot of teachers that are not fully certified. And so when they start, they need a lot of additional help, more
Yeah.
so than folks that come in and it's their first teaching job, but they've been through all the coursework. We have the ability in Michigan to certify teachers to teach while they're continuing in school, while they're working on that
Mm.
certification. As
And
long as
that's oh, go ahead. No, finish. I'm so
well, as
sorry.
long as as long as they have a bachelor's degree in something, we can get
Mhm.
them a permit to teach while they're working on their, teaching certificate.
And okay, so what I was going to say, as before I rudely interrupted you, was, um, and that is because of shortages. Is that right?
Yes, it is because of shortages. And I have a lot of people that offer opinions on why there are shortages, and I don't know who's correct. I just know that when I go to staff for a school year, I have trouble finding enough
Yeah.
people. I've
Yeah.
developed a wonderful relationship with a third party company that fills in all the holes when I need them filled. But again, those are usually people who are working on certification and aren't fully certified.
Yeah.
Um, and so one of the things that we've developed here in East Point is what I call a special education boot camp. And it's for those staff members that are not fully certified when they start teaching. And so we do 2 days of online trainings. It's a full day over the course of 2 days. Folks are in 12 different 1 hour sessions where either they have chosen or I've chosen based on where they are in that certification process, what sessions they need to participate in. Everything from how to get ready for your first school year to compliance issues, instructional issues. And then we have some that are just what's it like to be a teacher in East Point and what do I need to know? Also
Wow.
behavior, that's a big topic.
Mm-hmm.
Always
Yeah.
asking, how do I handle the behavior of students? And so we just finished boot camp 2 weeks ago, mid-August, and had a great turnout, had over 40 staff members participating in the sessions. And just for reference, we're about a 2,500 student school district. So that's a lot of staff
Yeah.
members that
Yeah.
came and participated and got a lot of good information that hopefully made this start to school a lot better and easier for them and their students.
Yeah, what a blessing to them and what a blessing it is to the students, because you have this.
Mhm.
How long did it take you to set something like that up? That must have been a
Oh,
little bit of a
wow.
lift.
Wow. Yeah. I worked on it all summer, but a little bit each day or each week.
Mhm.
I am blessed with some staff members that have been with us for a while that have a whole lot of expertise and knowledge. And so, between, I'd say maybe 7 or 8 other people that presented, and then myself, we were able to, have at least 2 or 3 sessions running each hour so
Oh,
that people
nice.
had kind of had a choice. But again, I couldn't have done that without the amazing veteran staff members that, come back every year and they've learned all these
Mhm.
policies and procedures and they can help pass on that information as easily as I can.
Yeah, I know about having an amazing team. I'll tell you. I they make you look so good, don't they? They really
Yeah,
do. They
can't
really
do it
do.
without them.
Yeah, I know. I was just, as you were talking about that, our executive director of clinical operations is Erin O'Connell, and she's a school psychologist, and she is amazing, absolutely amazing. And Shelley Kaufman was our first when we were startup bootstrapped. I did it myself, and Shelley Kaufman was my first hire because I'm the speech therapist and she was my OT, right? And she's now our regional director of clinical services. And those two this summer, boy, same thing. Just exactly what you were talking about. Just putting it together, getting the orientation, making it smooth. But it's a big lift when you're trying to things that you just automatically know and you just take for granted. Boy, they're very good at just like putting it into something that works, right?
Yeah, I kind of equate it to when a teacher teaches a lesson, right? You have
Hmm.
to break it down into its most smallest steps. We teachers call that like a task analysis of,
Hmm.
what do my kids need to know first, and then what are those small chunks to get them to my final learning objective. And so that's kind of what we did with boot camp. We just started with what are the absolute basics that people need to know because our target audience was new folks coming in that either are fully certified, but it's their first year teaching, or are still in school to become fully certified. And so we just looked at, boy, if you were a brand new teacher, what are the things that you needed to know? And then we created sessions that could not only provide information in that moment, but that we could record and folks could refer back
Refer back,
to.
yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because if you're listening to 12 different presenters over the course of 2 days, there's no way you can remember
Yeah,
everything. But if you
yeah.
have access to the PowerPoints, and then if you are able to go back and refer, you can refresh your memory about what you've heard and really just become better at providing those services for our students.
So I'm curious, because I don't know. When you have a bachelor's degree, say I went to I don't even know. I'm just pick a liberal arts college and got my liberal arts degree, and then decided I wanted to teach. And I love math. I don't know. I pick something. Or I love second graders. And you have a hole in second grade. I don't know. I
Yeah.
guess I'm struggling. Like, what does that look like when you hire somebody like that? What is the process for something like that? I guess is the question I'm asking.
I hope I get this right because the majority of that work is done by human resources, but
Okay.
I think I understand. So if you have a bachelor's degree in something, but your intent, this program that MDE has, Michigan Department of Ed, has kind of
Okay.
developed for us is really for people who intend to become teachers. So it's not
Okay.
just, hey, I have a degree in, engineering. Maybe I'll teach for a while. It's really for somebody who wants to take where their expertise already is and then
Okay.
become a teacher,
Okay.
sharing that expertise with students. So if you have you said, a bachelor's degree in some area of liberal arts, but you want to teach second grade, then a school district would have to hire you and then apply for a temporary permit.
Okay.
And then you have, this is the part I'm a little fuzzy on, but I think you have 1 year to enroll in a program. And then each year after that, you have to get 6 credits in
Okay.
that program. And as long as you do that, you can continue to have a permit every year until you finally have your, typically it's master's degree because that's what
Mhm.
they're working
Yeah.
on since they already have
Yeah.
a bachelor's. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Michigan has really tried to help us out with kind of filling these holes, because it is very challenging to get teachers. And if you think teachers are hard, speech therapists, social workers, and psychologists, even harder to find. Yeah,
Yeah.
really, really hard to find right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually am licensed as an SLP in Michigan, but I'm not available. Sorry.
Are
but
you
but yeah
sure we can't talk about right
yeah.
now?
Yeah. I actually, at over the course of my career, 31 years, I've been licensed in, I think, 14 to 15 different states. Now, they're working on a compact. I don't know if you're aware of that. And I don't know if Michigan's in it. You can, ASHA, the American Speech Language Hearing Association, has been working on a compact. It's funny because I started this business in 2018, and in 2019 I wrote a blog about the compact and was excited, because cross licensing is a challenge, and I wish more states would do the same kind of thing. During COVID we did have some waivers, because it was just a scramble, which was super helpful, but those waivers, when COVID ended, so did the waivers. But I know they've been working on this compact, and the last I heard was September of 2025. But it was 24, it was 23, it was 20. It was, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just been, they've just extended and extended. I think there are 35 states. Unfortunately, Texas is not. I'm in Texas, but is not. It failed, and I don't know the politics or anything about why it's not. It didn't pass. But I think Michigan might actually be in there. And if you want to know, you can go into the ASHA and just look up ASHA Compact, and it'll come up.
No,
And
okay.
there's a not a map of the states that have approved it and passed it. But I know that the therapist has to be in one of the states, and they also the state that they're going to work in has to also be in the compact. So for me, I couldn't even do it. I mean, I'm licensed in Michigan. Obviously, I could work as a Michigan SLP there because I'm licensed there, even though I live in Texas. But you have to have an active license in that state. So even though even though I have a license in Michigan, I couldn't use that license in the compact because I don't live in Michigan, which is sad. It's one of those things where it's like, now if I have an address in Michigan, then it might be different. I don't know all the ins and outs of all of that yet, but I know as a company that hires people as SLPs and school psychs and OTs, the compact is going to be super helpful for us as long as districts are willing to accept the compact, knowing that they have a license in another state. And I'm assuming it won't be an issue, but
Yeah. Well,
again, you just,
one of the things that we've had to resort to is, I have this wonderful relationship with this third party, and they're able to find remote. We call
hmm
it remote. I don't know if remote is the right term, remote
virtual.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
virtual,
hmm
um, speech therapists. And actually, we have one social worker. We tried the psychologist thing. We weren't super successful with that, but speech
Mhm.
is going really, really well.
Oh,
And the
that's
way
good.
we handle that in East Point, because I have two speech therapists that live in Pennsylvania. I have one that lives right now in Georgia. I had one last year that lived in Arkansas, I think. We're in Michigan, so we're talking about people that, really aren't close.
Right?
And the way we make it work is that we hire what we call a facilitator, a speech
Uh-huh.
facilitator. And so it's a paraprofessional level position, but
Yep.
we train them in how to support speech therapists remotely. And we try to run our sessions with just one, maybe two students at a time. So that facilitator goes into the classroom, picks up the student, brings them to the speech room, and then
Mhm.
stays and actually participates in the session. So they're not sitting in the back of the room, texting on their phone while the students are having speech. They've got the farm animals out, and, they've got pre-prepared materials that they're using so that they can actively participate in that speech session and then return the student to class and pick up the next student. So
Mhm.
we've had quite a bit. I think out of my 10 speech therapists in the district right now, 7 of them are remote.
We all feel it. Students are struggling more than ever with emotional and behavioral challenges. Lighthouse Therapy offers virtual, hybrid, and in person behavioral and mental health support that builds around your school environment. Our licensed professional are trauma informed, experienced, and trained to work with K 12 students and staff. You don't get a cookie cutter approach, you get a partner who listens, adapts, and builds trust. Because when students feel safe and seen, they thrive. Learn how you can get support at your school at lighthouse-therapy.com/brighter together. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's exactly what Lighthouse does. That is the exact same
okay.
thing. Yeah. So we started out as a virtual company, and our mission is to be a therapy company run by therapists for the betterment of students. That's exactly what we do. And we have all related services, and we're actually stepping into special education teachers because there's such a shortage this
There
year.
is.
Yeah. And we have APE teachers, adaptive
Mhm.
physical education teachers, and we had a deaf and hard of hearing teacher. I think we maybe got one. I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah, and it all depends on what state they're licensed in and what state you
Right.
need them in, and
Right.
it's a whole process. Sometimes some states are faster than others. We are excited about the compact. Hopefully, the compact, because of course the lion's share of what we do is speech therapy, just because there's more students that need speech therapy services other than special education teachers. I mean, and those services, but for us, speech therapy, and then we've also stepped into remote or not remote, hybrid, where you
Yes.
have a therapist that's remote, but a couple of times a year it costs more, because you're having them travel, but it does get them in front of the children a couple of times a year, 2, 3 times a year, depending on what the district wants. And then in person, if you can find it. But if you can't find it, it's a difficult task to find
So
sometimes.
difficult. I do
Yeah.
have one of my remote therapists that actually lives in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he will come in to do evaluations for our
Little
younger
ones, yeah.
students.
So
They call
if you need to
marbles.
do the PLS or something like that, preschool
Exactly.
language scale, yeah.
Yeah, because it's
Um,
really hard to assess young ones through a computer,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
even with all the wonderful tools and assessments that you can do
Mm-hmm.
online. We just find it really hard, especially when you're looking at a student who possibly is on the autism spectrum and they may be completely nonverbal. And so that's a really
Yeah,
tough
that's when
assessment.
you lean a lot on your facilitator. You really have to lean on that facilitator. So I've been doing online therapy since 2011. So you're speaking right up my aisle. That's right. Yeah.
We
So
really just
yeah.
started maybe 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And, honestly, I would have to say that we would certainly prefer to have in-person speech
Mm-hmm.
therapists, but
Mm-hmm.
this is the next best thing, and
Yeah.
it's gone really well for us. Not every district, I think, has had such luck,
Yeah.
And maybe I just have gotten lucky with having great SLPs and great facilitators, and so they've made it work, but
And that's exactly it. It's the marriage between it's that marriage
Mhm.
between your facilitator, which the
Yeah.
therapists depend on,
Mhm.
and the district's willingness to do that, and also open communication. You just really have to. Research shows, and this is it's kind of sounding like me advertising, and it's not my intent, but because we're talking about it and I have so much knowledge about it, I love that we're able to talk about this, because research has shown over and over again that it is effective. It's a modality like anything else, it's like, and there are modalities that work for students, and there are modalities that don't. And the same thing with online. There are students, and honestly, there's a lot of the autistic kids, ASD kids, like you were talking about, kids on the spectrum. Some of them do incredibly well because you take all that external stimuli out. I put headphones on, I have the camera and the microphone, and I don't have to worry about anything else that's going on because I'm focusing right here looking at you, and I don't have to worry about Johnny over here doing something because I'm
Right.
focused here.
Right.
And it's super. It that was my experience as well. And depending on your level of expertise and the therapist's expertise, that makes a big difference too. And
It does very much
yeah.
so, and the resources that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And also kind of, I think, the balance between what you're going to do online. When you talk about younger students that are on the spectrum, you pull out that computer, and if you want them to do work solely on that computer, we find an awful lot of kids who spend a lot of time with devices.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the therapist is no longer there. You got YouTube popped up on the screen
Uh-huh. Yeah.
or something similar. So again, that's where a really good facilitator comes in, but
Yeah.
also a balance between that and then actually having your traditional, I always say farm set because that's what I've seen most often, but you have your speech games and you have your props and the items that you use as you're manipulating that to kind of play. Some of the best
Mm-hmm.
speech therapy I've seen is done in a play
Yeah,
setting,
yeah.
right?
And especially with nonverbal autistic students, parallel play is really effective. It's a really effective way to provide language to that child because you're on the floor, you're playing with them. And that's one of the students that when you talk about in my career, I've had twice, I've said these two students were not appropriate for online, and only two in 14 years. That's
Yeah.
a lot. That's
That's a lot.
pretty. But I'm very good. I mean, I don't want to toot my own home, but I'm very good at what I do. But one of them was exactly that. He was autistic. He hated the computer, and he needed parallel play. He needed somebody down. I mean, and certainly the fact that he wouldn't even go near the computer, it's like really hard to do online therapy when he doesn't
Right.
want to be at the computer. And he was little. He
Exactly.
was 3. He was a little guy. But he needed somebody down on the floor with him playing. He really
Mhm.
did. And the only other student I had was one that was just really violent, and he had other issues, and it wasn't, just trying to get him to the computer, and he's fighting with his mom. It's like that's not effective. And that's the thing. You have to have companies and therapists that understand that there are ethics involved, and that you have to make sure that that it's okay to say this child's not appropriate and this child is appropriate, and that as long as they get that and you get that and you work together with that, it's a successful modality. It really is. I mean, it's my business. It's what I do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we've
yeah.
had some really good luck with
It's
that.
fantastic. Yeah. So what
Yes.
else? So you do speech, and then you've been able to do the policies and new teachers, and
Mm,
wow, and you said this was your first um administrative position, and you've been there for 11 years. Did I hear that from you?
yes, yes.
That is
Mhm. I was a
amazing.
well, I was a teacher consultant, and you might know
Okay.
what that is because you
Yeah.
have
Mhm.
experience in Michigan, but what I have found is not a lot of other states have teacher consultants, and so, um, I guess the best way to describe it is we, act as kind of like a quasi department chair for special
Mhm.
ed, buildings, and
Right.
so I did that for, I don't know, maybe 10 years, and then
Oh, wow.
my first, 20-ish, well, maybe not quite 20, but my first venture into special education was as a teacher. And so I think that experience has made me a better director
Mhm.
because I'm able to listen to the teachers and the folks that work in the department. And I've been in their shoes.
Yeah.
I've been in the classroom. So when they're asking about needing additional support because of behavior issues, I probably experienced something like that.
Mhm.
Our department, I supervise teachers, psychologists, speech and language therapists, social workers, and paraprofessionals. And so,
Mhm.
even for a small district like ours, that's about 60 people um, that work to support. One of the unusual statistics about East Point is that most districts in our area have about 11 to 15, maybe percent of their students that qualify for some level of special education support. And here we are well over 20%. We just have high needs.
I've heard that quite a bit. When I started doing because I've been a therapist for 31 years, and it's over half my career has been education now. But I did some rehab. Some my first year in was in traumatic brain injury. My CFY year was that, and boy, that was an experience, and you don't know in your life what's going to happen. I have really good insurance right now because of it.
Right.
30 years later, but then I did some skilled nursing and some of that, and then I went back. I went into the schools, and I kind of bounced a little bit back and forth. But the last 15 years has been in education. And good grief, I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? We were talking about the
Well, high percentage
oh,
of kids that
percentage. So
have
thank you.
needs.
Good grief. Where did my brain go? Anyway, it was 13% was high. When I started 15 years ago,
Yes.
when I'm thinking about my career, 13% was a high percentage, and yet now, thank you for getting me back on track, Lori. um, I've heard that a lot, 20, 25. Now there are specialized schools I've seen where, it's like that's what they do, and that's a totally different, but
Right.
education, general education schools and charter schools and certain districts, and I do you know why that is? What's bringing that
Um,
about?
Boy, that's a big question.
Yeah.
And I've asked it of some of the amazing staff members that I am fortunate enough to work with over the years, and I really have two answers that people keep coming back to. One of them is that as the medical world gets better, um, we are now saving children and
Mm,
pregnancies that
mhm.
maybe would not have, students born
Survived, yeah.
prematurely that
Mhm.
maybe would not have survived 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or longer. But
Mhm.
sometimes that comes with a price tag, that comes with
Yeah.
some disabilities. And the other thing is the one psychologist that works for me that is absolutely amazing in every way. She would point to devices and
Mhm.
not just, I think it's really interesting when you talk to her about it because it's not just the device, it's not just watching movie or screen time, it's the swiping that she
Mm.
fears the most for students. It's the
Social
idea that
media.
I'm bored,
Mhm.
I swipe. I'm bored, I swipe. And so
Mhm.
we see this, we saw it yesterday and we saw it today. We
Mhm.
see students, especially kindergartners or students, that even our older students have had all summer where most of the time parents are pretty lax with device rules in the summer. And so kids come back and that teacher is boring me, but I can't swipe. And
Mhm.
so it really becomes an issue, that instant gratification of I'm not being entertained, so I'll just flip to
Yeah.
something else,
Yeah.
has really become a problem. So,
Yeah.
um,
I get it.
I
That's
don't know
true.
the
It's very yeah.
I don't know
I
the
agree
answer to
with
your
you. Yeah.
question, but,
No, I it's
people a lot
and it
smarter have contributed those
yeah.
I
Yeah, and there's a lot. I mean, and it is affecting our children, and it is a concern. And I know that there are lots of legislation that's happening about cell phones and
Well, in
devices.
Texas,
And
where you are, right?
yes, yeah, they have. I
Hot
just
topic.
was, I just went to our region too. There was a presenter, John Muniz, who's he's a lawyer that contracts a lot with the schools in Texas. Amazing man, an amazing man. And I met him, and he's super helpful just to me. And I went and he invited me to go and see his presentation with these SPED directors. And that's exactly what they were talking about. What is the law and how are we going to deal with it? And, the exceptions. And it was a really interesting presentation. And yeah, Texas is taking it on, and they're like, no more. And we'll see what happens. And, the waivers and what's happening. And,
Yeah,
and it's a burden that is that's going to be put on the schools, and they're going to have to figure it out. And some schools are like doing, okay, well, everybody gets a waiver, and others are like, no, it's like nobody gets a waiver. And, it's district specific. And we've had several guests on here who've talked about their policies with high schools and no cell phones and what's happening, and other schools that are, tackling it as well. And, turn it off. It's got to be turned off. And we're even as adults, you have it, you have yours, I have mine. It's sitting over here,
for
and it's
sure.
like, how much are
Right.
we on it, and how much are we engaging? And I tell my
Right.
husband, I'm like, we need a day where there's just no phones. And we did it for a while and then got lax. And, we had no phone Fridays so that we could just be a couple. We've been married for 30 years. But it's almost an epidemic. It's
It's
really
a challenge. I
it's a
know
challenge. Yeah, for sure.
it is,
I,
and it's
I, I,
so
yeah,
it's interesting to hear parents. I in social media, I've kind of been following what's going on in Texas, and to hear parents say, "Wow, I need to be able to get a hold of my child in case of emergency." And I'm thinking, as a school administrator, that's the last thing I want, right?
yeah,
I don't want your child to hear a sound, assume it's a crisis, and text you, and then you text all your friends, and next thing you know, we've got 30 parents in an office trying to pick up students, adding to whatever chaos there may or may not
may
be.
not be. Yeah,
So
yeah.
the parents that are like, "I need to get a hold of my kid," I'm thinking that's not what we want. That's the whole
Mm-hmm.
reason we wanna ban these. We don't want parents readily
Right,
accessible to their kids
right.
during learning time. It's not
Well, and
helpful.
it's a distraction. It's a total distraction.
Totally.
And, I've talked about too about, the second that it goes off and you look at it, get me back. How do you get me back to, how do I get myself back to what I was thinking? I mean, I even got distracted to myself when we were talking about percentages of services and utilization of special education. I don't need a phone also distracting me on
Right.
top of it.
There's enough
It's just,
natural distractions that
yeah,
you don't
yeah.
need an additional one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And kids, and again, it's that whole the psychologist that I spend so much time with, I think is so on the mark. Because you can't go into a classroom as a student, and when you don't in special ed, we call it that non-preferred activity, right?
Mm-hmm.
When a student is asked to do a non-preferred activity,
Yeah.
you can't just make it go away and get something that you enjoy. And kids come you can really, really see it at the beginning of a school year in a kindergarten classroom. You walk
Mm-hmm.
into that kindergarten classroom and you see kids running out of the room. Eloping has become so much more common than it ever was before. You see kids running out of classrooms. You see kids destroying, tipping over tables and throwing objects. And most of the time, the root of that is an adult is asking me to do something that I don't wanna
I
do.
don't want to do it.
I don't
Yeah.
wanna make it more simple than it is, but
No, I get it. Yeah.
there's a lot of
It's a
complexities to that, but
yeah.
essentially, someone's telling me to do something that I'm not willing to do, and so the result is I fight or flight, and
Mm-hmm.
boy,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's hard.
It's definitely a problem that we have today that we didn't have 20 years ago. And
Exactly.
it's not going away. It's definitely not
Yep.
going away. We've got to figure it out. And kudos to you and to all of our educators. And that's the whole point of Brighter Together. Let's talk about what's happening in education, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But there's
Mhm.
really so much good out there. And look what you've
Yes.
done, and look at how you're fighting that fight. And you're in a position, and you've stayed in it for 11 years. That's a long time. That's a tough job. I special education and special education directors and superintendents, and those are the two that we talk to the most, because we do talk to mostly decision makers in special education, and those are the people that are, you guys are the ones that are on the front line making those decisions, and it is a fight, and it is a hard job, both of those jobs. Kudos to my hat goes off to all of the special education directors and all of the principals and superintendents, because it is a hard job and a thankless job. Most of the time you're hearing the people that are mad or upset with you about something, instead of the people that you're changing their lives. You're making things better for them in ways that will never be counted. And so here, we at Lighthouse want to show that and say, hey, there are really amazing things. And so thank you.
And amazing
Yeah.
people, thank you, I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that. Just amazing people. I think, I've tried to retire 3 times, and the first time,
I believe it.
I trained someone. I spent a whole school year training someone to take over, and then when it was time for her to take over, she quit after 2 weeks,
Oh no.
and then, I retired t I tried to retire 2 more times, and currently, to be totally transparent, I'm working 3 days a week, trying to do this job 3 days a week because, it's time to
It's
phase
time to,
myself out,
yeah.
but
Uh-huh.
there's nobody willing to jump in and take it
Right.
over. But what keeps me coming back is just all the dedicated folks that are here. I know it sounds cliche, but I mean, we've got people that truly care about kids, and so they keep coming back, and then I keep coming back with them.
Right.
So
Yeah. I get it. I get it. And yeah. Yeah, and it's good. You're good. You're doing an amazing job, and you got to, at some point, someone will step up,
I'm
and one of
hoping.
those amazing people that has keeps coming back. Hopefully, one of those people will step up, because with your leadership, I bet you've got some amazing people that could do it and give you that retirement that you so deserve.
Yes, it's time to be grandma and not special
Yeah.
ed director.
I want to be grandma. I'm not there yet. So I told my kids, I said, my kids are the same way. They're like, Mom, you're never going to quit. And I'm like, because I love what I do. I really do. But I'm only 57. I've got 8, 9 years before I don't want to retire till after I'm 65. But if you give me grandbabies, I might consider it sooner.
I'm telling you, it's the best.
Yeah, I'm
The
not
best
there.
job I've ever had is
Yeah,
Mimi, actually, I'm Mimi,
you're
so
Mimi. I want to
Mimi
be
is the
Nana.
best job
Yeah.
I've ever had.
I have grand puppies and grand kitties right now. That's what I've got.
Okay.
Just puppies and kitties. No grandbabies yet, but we'll get there when they're ready. That's to
Yeah,
say, I
you'll
was
love
30
it.
before I had kids, so how can I tell them?
Mhm.
Hurry up.
Right.
They're not. None of them are. My oldest is only 27, so, and my youngest is 23. And then I've got one
You have
in the middle.
time.
He's 26, so I got time. Yeah,
Yep.
but I'm ready. They're not. They're just not ready. So anyway.
Okay.
All right. So Lori, where should people go to learn more about East Point Community Schools?
We have a wonderful website that's kept up by our communications director, eastpointcommunityschools.org.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Well, thank you, Lori. It has been an absolute pleasure to speak with you. I know you've got an amazing team, and I'm just grateful that we had this time to talk. So
Thank you.
thanks.
It's been very enjoyable for my
Yeah.
first podcast. So
There
thank
you
you.
go. There you go. And we love our team and the people that come on, because on Brighter Together, because we're brighter together. We really are.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
thanks again.
Thank you.